Branding a podcast properly the first time is definitely easier than rebranding a podcast because you've now have some connective tissue and some history that you have to keep in mind. But when you're initially starting out, the first thing I would want to do is think about your audience and the promise that you are making to the listener. And when I say promise, what I really mean is, what is the value a listener gets if they listen to your show? One of the issues or mistakes or missed opportunities I had was target market insights was not very clear. Now, I come from marketing where understanding a target market is just normal vernacular. So for me, it was this overlap of a marketing term in advertising and marketing and a real estate term when it came to the actual location. And I intended it to be this duality of figuring out your target market and how to figure out the insights that can help you connect to this target market. Well, that doesn't, I mean, I got it, right? The guy in advertising and multifamily, but the person scrolling through Apple Podcasts and quickly trying to figure out a show to listen to, they're not thinking that hard and long about the show title. So if it was, target market insights or apartment investing podcast, they would click on apartment investing podcast, right? So you can't overthink this because people are not going to pay you very much attention. They're going to scroll, they're going to look at a picture, they're going to see the name of the show, and either it's something that's going to grab their attention and they're going to know exactly what this show is going to be about and the kind of value they're going to get if they download and listen to an episode, or they're going to be confused and just keep scrolling. Yeah. So one, you just have to keep it super direct. I'm going to say simple, but I don't mean to say it can't have any intrigue or, a hook or anything like that. But they have to understand exactly what your show is going to be about. If it's something vague like insightful monologue, I would assume that's like, some deep poetry or actors type thing, right? So you just got to make sure people understand what the show's about just off the title, right? It can't be something where I have to go to the show notes or I've got to read the bio on the show to figure out what this thing's about. It's got to be in the title. So I think from a branding standpoint, super simple, very, very clear. Clarity is your friend. The other thing that I would mention there is making sure that you actually pay off that thing. So whatever the show's going to be about, make sure you pay it off, because what you don't want.
What do you mean by paying it off?
Yeah. So this is actually going back to our history, Adam. This is a tip I got from Adam, not necessarily about podcasting. This was actually from meetups. And you may recall this conversation we had many years ago, and we talked about how to grow a meetup. And one of the things that we talked about, and again, Adam gave me this feedback, so let's give him credit. He said, when you're hosting a meetup, if you call that meetup title, how to underwrite a deal in 5 minutes. I'm just using that as an example. Make sure you tell the people who show up how to underwrite a deal in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Don't use a title and then get up there and just talk about how great you are as an investor and loosely, play around underwriting, but never actually pay off that thing that hooked people in the first place. And I think that's important. So if you're going to title an episode or have your show title, make sure you're giving people the value that they signed up for. Don't do a bait and switch. Don't do this just a little teaser situation. If they see the value, they'll stay. They'll stick with you. They'll subscribe. They'll leave a review. They'll make it a favorite. They'll share your episode, right? So make sure you pay that off. And that was a great piece of feedback. It seems simple and obvious, but I don't know about you, but I've gone to a number of events where if, I showed up and it was, hey, here's how to save $10,000 on your taxes. And I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And at no point did they ever tell me how to save money on my taxes, right? They try to sell me some program that was like $20,000 or something crazy. But at no point did I get the value that I was alluded to in the title or the initial invite. So I think that's really important as well. So one, clarity with the name of the show, but then two, make sure you pay off that value proposition.
I started my first podcast called Creative Real Estate Podcast. And I thought to myself, okay, this is going to get me big. This is going to make my name big. This is going to get people to know who I am. I'm going to interview other people in the space, get to know them, and it did most of the things. But what it didn't ever do, well, it barely kind of did, was brought me passive investors. And that's because creative real estate speaks to the person who needs creativity in order to do a deal. And the person with a whole bunch of money who just needs it to be simple and not creative just needs to passively invest. So I ended up selling that podcast for a similar reason that you rebranded yours, is because I said, finally, this is getting in front of the wrong person. This is helping the operator. This is helping someone like me, but I needed to add value to someone not like me. I needed to add value to somebody who had way too much money and not enough time, not somebody who has way too much time and not enough money.